Okay. We're live very momentarily for now, I guess. So basically, the internet just turned to garbage suddenly. Again, completely out of my control. Um, we're streaming at a lower bit rate, like extremely low right now. Almost as low as it goes in 720p.
Usually as low as I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we pretty much try to disconnect any devices that are on this network. Like the throughput is there, it's just like not happening. It's not consistent. I mean, I don't know. We'll keep trying, but I mean, we've been at this for a while. Fortunately, the only part of Hearthstone games that you guys missed was whatchamacallit, the last game where the warrior had lethal and there was no way the rogue could do anything. As it turns out, there was no way the rogue could do anything, so the warrior won. So you guys missed that, and that guy was already up a game, so he just took the set, and no big deal there. Coming up, we're doing the round of 16. There's, I think, some setup involved in that. I think it was supposed to start, but hasn't yet, so we have some time to talk. I really wanted to go over all the groups instead of messing around with internet, but you know, some things had to take priority. So right now I want to go over just all the players that qualified, and we'll go into more detail if there is more time. And again, when it comes to this broadcast, like, the Hearthstone game just starts. I'm not warned or anything. You know, like they have the Hearthstone casters over there, so it might start in like 10 seconds. I don't know. In regards to Group A, which was Cowfox, Lothar, Icy Foxy, and Lebo, I believe Cowfox qualified 2-1, and let's see, is it Lebo? Lebo, he lost one game there, he won another there, and he won another there. Yeah, so Lebo also qualified 2-1. So two Chinese players came out of Group A. Group B, we have Saviz. He ended up beating Admirable, who's sitting next to me. And it looks like Alchemix beat Hyped and qualified for the spot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what's this? Is this Hearthstone?
No, that's
Probably not.
No, that's Warcraft. That's Warcraft 3, for sure.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let's just go over the top 16 list here. Nope, it's not ready on my screen. I'm not refreshing it. Oh my god. No. We're just gonna go through them. I think we have a little bit of time here. So out of Group B, the ones that qualified are Saviz and Alchemix. Hyped and Admirable didn't make it, but he made it to the chair. Welcome.
Oh, this is you said it before. You got to be real good to get to the casting desk, and I did real good this weekend. A solid 1-2 performance, but I'm pretty happy with my play though.
Okay.
A couple mistakes, but gonna do.
All right. Well, let's see. Group C. The matches that we didn't see that probably have some interest. Fishy Fairy beat Monk. Forsen beat Hulu. Forsen beat Monk. So Forsen is through, and Hulu beat Fishy Fairy.
No, I think Forsen lost, actually. I'm pretty sure he's won too. Because he lost his first matchup. Because of a poor bowling choice. I'm pretty sure he's won too. I'm pretty sure he went 0-1 and then...
It is 1 and 2?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he went...
Okay, I'm refreshing. Forsen may not have qualified. Sorry for Forsen boys. No qualify. It takes me a while to refresh. So yeah.
The internet here is real good. That's actually what we were just talking about, is how great the internet was.
Well, right now we haven't dropped any frames, but fortunately we're sending data like like we're throwing balls or something. So we're not sending much of that. But at this rate, we're keeping it nice and steady, I suppose. That's more important. We missed a lot of games because there's a lot of games backstage. Not because we weren't able to get to them, but because it's on a whole separate network. And yeah, the internet here is pretty bad. For instance, we talked to the casters of the Warcraft 3 tournament. They had internet for 20 minutes yesterday, before there was no more internet. So
Solid.
could be worse, I
It
suppose.
could always be worse.
Yeah.
You could just get like a broken leg or something. That's,
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually see that there's a Warcraft 3 game going on right now, so it seems that there was a lot of delay setting this up, and we might be pushed further. Actually, maybe it's a good idea if we check that there isn't a Hearthstone game currently going on, because it should have started by now.
Yeah, they had the stage delay. They had to get this Warcraft 3 game started.
Yeah, but it's been like an hour for them to get started.
They were waiting on one guy to finish a game.
Yeah, but they called in like Saviz too, didn't they?
Well, that's just because they had the scheduling on the sheet.
Okay.
They pulled me about an hour before my actual match.
Oh, is that how it works?
Just kind of stand around. I was like, this is cool.
Okay. Well, maybe we have a little bit more time to take a look at the rankings. So we were in Forsen's group. As far as I see the rankings here, maybe there's a typo, but Forsen did win 2 matches.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he lost too. He was nowhere to be found. He was pretty upset.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the qualifiers out of Forsen's group, who are they? I see Hulu. There's Fishy Fairy and Monk. And Fishy Fairy. So Hulu and Fishy Fairy qualified. So Forsen did not qualify over the Chinese players, and Monk didn't qualify over the other Chinese players.
Chinese natives.
Chinese natives.
Yeah.
Nice. That was a good save.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. So no Forsen bros. ThatsAdmirable Mike, say something?
Hello, howdy.
You are a little low.
Yep.
Now you're good.
Cool.
Okay. Group D was the Raynad Salt Can group, where Raynad didn't make it out of it.
That was a little bit
Okay.
of a...
Apparently the last group match is being played now with Dark Wonix, and that is the group of 5 players, so that does take a little bit more time, and that's fairly understandable. And hopefully the Warcraft 3 shenanigans ends, and that will start as soon as it does. All right, on to Group D. It was Raynad, Ekop, Kungan, and Hunter Ming. Ekop beat Raynad and Kungan, but lost to Hunter Ming. Wow, he lost to Hunter Ming?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I think he really underestimated his opponent. And
That seems fair.
Well, like after the match, he was really upset about his opponent's build and draw.
Okay.
And I was watching the match unfold, and I was like, I don't know if you're actually favored in this one.
Okay.
But it was a handlock versus a miracle matchup, but it was a very non-traditional miracle. There was 2
Okay.
copies of Assassin's Blade, 2 Blade Flurries, a Violet Teacher. It's basically it's like value rogue. Its whole goal is to get to a point in the game where it can
What's that?
kind of just extend its.
Your microphone's not working?
It's just not working at all.
Fake mic?
Big mic.
All right, 1 second, guys.
Yep. Say something? Should I be saying something now?
You're just really low. Try to get it next to your mouth. Like, just stick it in that beard. Say something now?
Hello? Hi? Is that better? What if I just took this off and like set it right here and just like,
No,
can
no.
I just hold it?
I think you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just really low. It turns out that people with big heads, this thing doesn't reach very far.
Yeah.
This is
Thanks.
engineered for people here,
Appreciate
I think.
it. Glad you're.
But we have much more information and burgers in our
Thanks. I'm
jaw
glad,
area.
Glad to know that you believe Americans are fat.
Yeah.
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 Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what were we talking about? We were talking about Ekop losing the match to Hunter Ming, and you were saying that it was a very non-traditional Miracle Rogue they ended up losing to. What was that like?
Yeah, so Ekop was playing Handlock, and he was playing against Miracle Rogue, and after the match, when he lost, he was really upset with his opponent's luck, and I was like, watching the game unfold, I was like, I don't think you're actually favored in this, because it's not just Miracle Rogue, it's actually just like Value Rogue. So there's 2 copies of Assassin's Blade, there's 2 copies of Blade Flurry, there's a Violet Teacher in there. His whole goal is to get damage out of his minions and use Blade Flurry to clear big swing turns from the handlock. And actually, while he's doing that, he's also pressuring his opponent and threatening lethal the whole time because of potential Shadow Step shenanigans.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't see a Shadow Step in his deck. That doesn't mean he doesn't have them, but all I saw were just valuable cards the entire way through. And so he's just able to pressure his opponent.
Did Hunter
and push him
Ming
there.
play Handlock himself?
I believe he played Handlock 1 game, but it wasn't against Ekop.
No, he played 2 games.
Was it 2 games with it?
Yeah, and both of those he lost terribly, from what I've seen.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I only saw one of the Handlock games, and I had to leave midway through. So.
Okay. Well, it seems like Hunter Ming did qualify, as he beat Kungan and Ekop, and Ecop beat the other opponents, Reynad and Kungan. As it turns out, Kungan did not qualify. However, he was able to take the games away from Reynad, and we recently heard about that. So
yeah, it was an interesting fashion the first game.
Yeah. In Group E, we have Xiao Zong, Blue Hair, Nimsh, and Masan. We already talked about that group. We know that Blue Hair and Nimsh are the qualifiers of it. In Group F, Gara, Noxious, You Love, and Kit Kats. We already talked about that. We do know that Gara and Kit Kats qualified out of that group. For Group G, that is the group of death. Actually, we talked about that as well. RDU qualified. I think he's the only person to go 3-0 in the qualifier stage.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he's not?
Who else went 3-0?
Oh, apparently someone else went 3-0 in Forson's group, but the ranks in Forson's group are a little bit messed up, so I wasn't quite aware of that. And the other person to qualify was Tides of Time. In Group H, that's still being played out, but I'm going to hit a refresh here before I tell you guys what's going on with Dark Wonix and the 4 Chinese dudes.
He has to actually win this match to qualify.
Oh, does he?
I think so.
So that means he's 2-1? But
I think so, he's 2-1, yeah.
But it still doesn't matter.
I think he has to win this one.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate to be stuck in a group of 5, but I mean, it is random. It isn't completely fair, and Hearthstone is random to begin with, so whatever.
His match on stage, his opponent had pretty close to 100% chance to win if they had just played their cards in the order that almost everyone watching thought they were going to get played.
Okay.
But they were worried about Holy Fire. It was a Freeze Mage versus a Priest match.
Okay.
They were worried about Holy Fire post Alexstrasza, and so they went through a very different sequence that yielded a very low win rate. When things panned out, and so Dark Wonix was actually able to beat Freeze Mage with like a mid-range tempo priest.
That's good.
Like, it's pretty unreasonable matchup to win, but
we've seen some of those. We've seen some not low plays, and actually they might be the highlight of the tournament so far. It's pretty amazing. Like, game's over, and then something happens so unbelievable that he ends up
I have seen
that.
some of the worst plays I've ever seen in this tournament so far.
That's good.
Like, literally some of the worst plays I've ever seen.
Well, we got to be to some extreme.
Including putting Drain Life in your deck.
Okay.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the worst plays I've seen in a long time, especially in a tournament with such a large prize pool.
Would you consider any cards worse than Drain Life in the Warlock set?
Corruption is pretty bad.
Yeah, but you can combo Corruption with a Frost Elemental.
Oh, solid.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've done that one about 6,000 times.
About one.
Got him.
You don't really play Corruption to begin with.
You don't first pick Corruption?
No.
Oh, you're playing Arena? Oh. That may be why I lose so much with Warlock.
Okay, yeah.
I had 9 Corruptions. I actually tweeted about it. I thought it was pretty good.
Did it go all right?
I went 2-3.
It's almost average.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there was a play where Kungan had there were no combination of cards in the game that could have won him. Like, if you included other classes, there was no combination of cards.
Oh, the attack into the snake trap?
Yeah, there was no combination of cards that could literally win Kungan the game. The only way that he could win is if his opponent decided to attack his Knife Juggler while Kungan had a snake trap active. And now, mind you,
the juggler would hit face.
Let's preface this. His opponent had seen a snake trap already, had tested for literally every other hunter trap, and he just played Lotheb, and he's out of range of Kill Command and Hero Power, and he has 3 taunts on the board, and the only way he can lose is if a snake Knife Juggler hits his face, and then he also has Kill Command with Hero Power.
With the beast.
With
from,
a beast.
From the snake.
Living, yeah. And
exact lethal.
And that happened. So it was a literal 100% chance to win the game with complete information and losing.
Yeah.
I was astonished. I have never seen that
That
before.
was Hunter Ming versus Kungan. We talked about that a bit. And the other, almost not low, was also Hunter Ming, I believe, against Reynad, where he had 7 mana, and the only way he was going to lose is not play a taunt, and his entire hand was basically taunt. And he played Molten Giant for 2 mana, and then Lotheb, and he was at 8th life, and the rogue had no board.
Yeah.
And he ended up Leroy and SI7 for exact lethal.
I remember this situation. It's pretty close to that. He was at 11 with Redhead had a 3-point dagger out. And instead of using Twilight Drake to attack a Loatheb, Mortal Coil, kill the other guy, heal up, try to do something, he just did like the opposite of that. It was like, I'm just dead to any combination of 8 damage that you have. Which is like, he had like 7 cards in his hand, drawn cards with Auctioneer. Pretty outlandish line of play, I think. Like, I don't even know what combinations of rogue cards
Qualified.
that are. Well, you know, some.
Did you qualify?
I didn't qualify actually.
Oh, okay.
Did you qualify?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you qualify?
All right. Well, we'll keep it easy with the shots. It's fine. I see the top 16 list, but I don't really understand what it means. Maybe it means the matchups.
Maybe it means it's what they, the top 16 players that qualified. Maybe it means that.
Well, there's a certain order here.
I think that's how the order they're playing in. Yeah.
Okay, so the order would indicate. Again, this might be complete nonsense at this point because I just don't know, but it might indicate that Lebo is playing Alchemixed, that Hulu is playing Ecop, Blue Hair is playing Kit Kats. RDU is playing one of the people in Dark Wanix's group. Tides of Time is playing one of the people in Dark Wanix's group. What's actually funny is the group of death is actually facing the next group of death, which is the 5-person group.
Well, I honestly don't mean to say anything, but I felt my group was a group of death as well. The difference between the 5-person groups and the 4-person groups was the actual amount of wins you had to get, so it is harder in that regard.
Yeah, that's pretty significant, though.
But I think from just purely like a play style and trying to solve my group was really difficult because there was 4 people who had 4 separate play styles, and all of them played those play styles extremely well. So there was no way to construct a lineup that did well in your group and then also did well in the rest of the stages of the tournament.
Yeah, there's no way.
It was.
There's no way.
Not that there's no way.
It's impossible.
I did not have the time to construct it, and admittedly, by everyone else's
there were no combination of cards. His cards were insane. It was a crazy deck.
His pasta was crazy.
Yeah.
There's no way that my Rigatoni can win against a Linguini like that. But it's my group was very difficult to balance against.
Yep.
You had to prioritize certain things, and so
yeah.
This is not shots fired. This is purely an analytical spot, so I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. Alchemix is going to hate me. Alchemix was the weakest player in the group. He had not been preparing very much. He'd been spending a lot of time with his wife, real-life things. They're preparing for certain financial endeavors, so on and so forth. He hasn't had a lot of time to prepare, and he's the most predictable one out of the group, aside from Hyped. But I think Hyped is playing at a potential best player in the world level.
Okay.
So the fact that he's predictable isn't it's a weakness of his, but it's not necessarily bad for him because he understands that
he's just so far ahead.
Well, he just understands that image as well, so he'll make a few card changes that allow him to twist that you expect that to happen to his advantage.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Savitz just always plays solid, and it's kind of hard to guess his lineup at times. I know he plays a lot of control.
Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, the only match in that group that we actually cast was Savitz versus Hype. Yeah. And Hype just took a massive dump on Savitz's deck choices.
Savitz had a really poor... He thought he was going to leave a Druid.
Yeah.
And I was like...
And then, as it turns out, Hype's out.
Yeah.
That's the only match you won. And Savitz, that's the only match you lost.
It was... Savitz made a couple errors in that one, too. It's I think when he saw the lead, when he played Paladin, and then Hype led Rogue, of course, he was like, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then, made one small error in there that probably wouldn't have even changed the outcome of the game. And it just, snowballed from there. Obviously very upset with his performance in that first one. But today he came, he was really prepared, he was calm, he understood his matchups really well. I think he regrets the Paladin deck choice.
Probably.
From what I hear, he's not going to play it at all.
Well, it'd have to get banned if he gets to the final for him not to play it.
I think it's really
which
likely.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, if they'd seen how well I did with Paladin also,
okay.
Solid 0-1 performance with it.
All right.
But, partly on the back of my own mistakes. But he played extremely well today. I was able to use Hype's predictability against him, and so we actually just had a coin flip in game 3, which is Rogue versus Rogue, and there's a 1-card change. I had 2 Cold Light Oracles. He has 1 Cold Light Oracle, 1 Fan of Knives.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Okay.
And I thought about making that same change too, and I just decided I wanted 2 Cold Light Oracles. But I had an Auctioneer before he had an Auctioneer, and then I was able to just pressure before he was able to pressure. He had to make a weird wonky play because he didn't want to burn cards from my Cold Light, so he actually had to just use a Blade Flurry from his hand to prevent from getting cards burned in the face of a Cold Light Oracle. So I came out on top because I was going first and we had identical draws basically. So.
All right. Well, let's go through the list a little bit here still. The next matchup is Gera versus Nimsh. That's an
I
interesting
like
one.
that. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Because it's very conflicting play styles. Like Gara likes to play control, and he
Yeah,
likes to,
and Nimsh just plays
he just likes
RNG
to
face.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay.
If I was as lucky as him, maybe I'd win more.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then we have Hunter Ming versus Fishy Fairy. Then we have Saviz versus Cowfox. I believe the game that we will be seeing is Saviz versus Cowfox.
I think so as well.
Yeah, but I am not sure. Again, the last few games that were sent to our little station here were not exactly
Very
the
little.
ones that we expected.
This is a
So
large station.
yeah. Fortunately, though, we're not dropping frames, so we're looking stable. It's just that the quality of the stream might be absolutely terrible from this point on, and yeah, whatever.
Solid confidence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've enjoyed myself watching these games, but I think from this point we're really going to get into it. I mean, at this stage, it's what everyone was complaining that they didn't have. You know, it's best 3 of 5, I believe,
Yep.
and you get the ban.
Yeah. I prefer to not ban,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't prefer best of 3. I actually kind of, now that I experienced it a little bit more, I kind of like the blind pick format because it forces you to prepare against certain kinds of things, and that's the
Yeah.
risk you assume when you don't have a comprehensive lineup. So like 9 deck blind pick, for instance, is like garbage because just if someone takes a lead, they can just snowball it with counter matchups. But like if you have like 4 deck best of 5 with blind pick, you have a deck left over, so you
Yeah.
have like potentially a silver bullet. But I actually don't even like the deck left over. I think you should just have to have a lineup.
I think in general, any kind of model that you put out there, if people like really take it seriously, on average, you know, the better players will come out on top.
Sure.
And you know, with like fewer games played, obviously players who think they are better and maybe in some cases are, they do feel a bit cheated as a result. But in general, I feel it does accomplish the goal.
I agree as well. It really stresses preparation from people because even preparing for a best of 3, you still have to really understand your opponents
Yeah.
and understand the matchups and what that means for what you should be doing. And not only that, but they're thinking the exact same thing you are, so you
Yeah.
have to think about how that goes to the next level. I was talking about
Yeah.
that. I think that's a really big strength of Hyped. I think I got a little bit lucky. I actually predicted all 6 decks right, and then I mixed up my lineup with Alchemix because I was just dumb. And
Yeah.
I
Well,
was-
mixing them up kind of like forces a loss, doesn't it?
doesn't force a loss, but it gave me a much worse chance to win because
Yeah.
I wanted my Paladin to face up against the Zoo deck, and that didn't happen. And so I had to have Cold Light Oracles against Zoo.
Well, from the small sample size of games that we ended up seeing on stream, I have to say that most of them were dominated by Rushy Zoo decks.
Yes.
And that does include some priests.
Yeah.
We did see some priest rush downs on stream.
Yeah. Undertaker is an extremely powerful card.
Yeah.
It gives you so much board control, and it got to the point where it took a certain kind of control deck to really keep that at bay. So something like, for instance, Fiery War Axe, really key card.
Yeah.
Deathbite, really key again for helping clean up the board. You have to scale into your mid game and then start pressuring your opponent. Like we used to see Warrior, it would
I don't
armor
think
up.
have we seen Death Rattle Priest versus Warrior? We haven't seen many Warriors, we haven't seen many Paladins, we haven't seen many Druids. All these like mid-game-ish classes, it
Yeah.
seems that people just choose to pick a handlock over all of them.
Well, the reason I think that is because a lot of those people are expecting their opponents to do those sorts of things, and so
Yeah.
they're going to handlock to try to pick off the aggro deck and then have an advantage in the control matchup with handlock. And it's kind of backfiring. Part of that also is a lot of people who are playing these Undertaker decks. There's three major ones, and then there's a new one that's kind of coming about. So obviously you have Zoo, you have Priest, and then you have Hunter. And Mage is kind of coming into the fray as like this. There's a lot of Undertaker builds
Yeah.
that we've seen here at this tournament.
Yeah.
So with that happening, something like Zoo feels like a really good default because people are just going to have more experience with it. They've played for months leading up to this event with a deck like Zoo, and all the other ones are a little bit confusing, and they're like, I could play Priest, but I don't know all the matchups as well as I know Zoo, so I'll play Zoo.
Do you really need to play a Zoo deck for months to know what you're doing?
I think aggressive decks are actually way harder than control decks. That's my opinion. Because you have to do everything perfectly. And
I think most of the ladder disagrees.
They do disagree, but what ends up happening is on ladder it's very different too because when you see a trend and a trend's winning, people will just pick up that trend and snowball it
Yeah.
because there's no reason to swap your lineup because you're only playing best of ones. So in best of ones, you should just be playing whatever the most powerful strategy is
Yeah.
until so many people are playing it that you can counter it.
Still, though, like, Zoo seems to be It's not that the choices are so hard. It's just that if you make a wrong one, you just lose.
That's what makes aggro decks so hard. Here's the caveat. Aggro decks are very forgiving of certain kinds of mistakes. Sometimes your mistakes don't matter, but when your mistakes matter, they snowball like one little tiny thing into losing a game. Like if you see someone put a Direwolf Alpha in the wrong spot and then place a minion in the wrong spot after that, like these little too subtle things where normally you just kind of drag them out to the board, those could just lose you games outright.
I think we can use like Noxious's game as a very good example. Like, you know, you're facing a control warrior and he draws into like 2 ghouls like right off the bat. Yeah. I mean, it's not looking very good for you immediately.
Right.
But, you know, you can't afford to, like, you know, lose a 2-1 to skip a turn because you don't want to play a Dark Iron to get executed.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that were crazy in that game, and specifically the Abusive Sergeant turn.
Yeah.
He literally could have just attacked in a different sequence and kept his Abusive Sergeant alive.
A lot of people didn't see that, though. So, I mean, some people forgave him, but when it comes to the example that, you know, I'm trying to push here, it's, you know, it's a small mistake, like 2-1 versus no 2-1 on the board, which usually is not going to be that big of a deal. But when it comes to, you know, that type of a matchup where, you know, you're not looking very good shape from the start, you know, not having every edge and making just a mistake like that might actually be the game.
Right. Like control decks, a lot of times, the choice in a control deck is how you actually build your deck, and a lot less about how you play the game, because your plays are pretty much like you've decided how this is going to happen before this game began. You're like, I want to play Fiery War Axe. I want to play Alkaline Pain afterwards. I want to shield block and shield slam something like a Dark Iron Dwarf. So when those circumstances start happening, you simply react to them. You play your cards, you beat up your opponent's cards, you scale into your late game minions, and you take over the game with 8 drops and 9 drops.
I feel, though, that, and I'll use Reynad's game when he played the handlock against like the like Secret Mage as an example. A lot of the choices from the handlock were like ridiculous. You know, you're playing against like a fairly wide variation of things that screw you up pretty hard. Like with secrets, if he has a fireball, if he has a flame strike. At the same time, from your end of things, because you don't play that much in the early game, because you know you save up your hand. You know, it's turn 6 and you can play out your turn like 7 different ways.
Yeah, handlock is sort
and
of...
if you're playing like Zoo, it's like, oh, that's a Flame Imp. Loot Hoarder, you know?
Handlock is a bit of an exception to that rule, especially when you're playing against Mage Secrets, because Mage Secrets have very different kinds of impacts on the game. Counterspell obviously functions very different from Mirror Entity, but if you look at something like Hunter Secrets, Explosive Trap, Freezing Trap, Snake Trap, all these things are meant to do kind of the same thing, which is disrupt your opponent's attack in some way. Whereas with Mage, they're literally trying to suppress your ability to do certain things or seize tempo from you because you've incorrectly sequenced what's happening. So 2 things are factoring in. It's an aggro mage, first of all, so the aggro deck creates a dynamic where there's usually more decisions.
It wasn't exactly an aggro deck, though. Like, he didn't just, like, go face.
He doesn't just go face, but he's got, like, Undertaker's Mana Worms, and then a lot of Death Rattle minions. And he scales at some point because he wants to get value from
duplicates. Kind of like a secret Zoo more than anything, I'd say.
It's a little bit more similar to that, but I think Zoo's a pretty aggressive... It's an aggressive control deck.
Yeah.
He wants to control the board and use minions to do it, and then punish you if you don't have any out. So the dynamic, not only does Handlock usually have a lot of decisions, because, like you said, you have so many cards in your hand in the mid-game, but he's also playing against a mage that's giving him lots of decisions to make. So that game in particular, I think, is really interesting. And I actually want to mention this while he's sitting here. I think Reynad played the game literally perfectly. The Alex Straza turn, a lot of people were talking about how that play is horrible, and I'm like, how else does he actually win this game if his opponent doesn't have some sort of like mistake lined up for this?
I think he did play that game exceptionally well. He said it was one of the few games where he actually felt he made a mistake.
Oh,
but in terms of degree to like the things you have to assume, the kind of odds you have to get, you know, just sorting through puzzle after puzzle every single turn. The degree of difficulty to win that game, I think, was extremely high.
The only real critique is at the end. The life tap down to 7, was it?
Equal odds, he had the second fireball and second flame strike.
Okay. Did the flame strike just end it when you just lost 100%? Okay.
Yeah, he said he was playing around flame strike or something.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a fair enough justification. From when you look at it, though, from like an outside perspective, it looks bizarre to
I didn't think it
life
did.
tap there. But
I was considering the cards that... Yeah, my aspect was a little bit different. I thought that, you know, if your opponent draws in a fireball, it's going to be pretty tough to win. and I thought, what like secures you the game. So in terms of draws, one more hit point would secure you the game. So if you drew Siphon Soul, which is one left, if you drew Farseer, there was one left of those. If you drew a Soulfire, you kill him.
Or Leroy.
Well, I didn't know that Leroy was in the deck.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So I thought his odds at that point were like 1 in 3.
Yep.
So it seemed kind of odd. But then he gets Leroy, and that places the odds to about 1 in 2. And then you have to consider, you won 1 in 2, you secure or win the game.
Yeah.
Versus, just kind of hope that your opponent doesn't draw something.
By the way, that's also a really nitpicky thing to be a mistake, because the difference between life tapping and not life tapping, if you want to play around Fireball, is one card out of your opponent's remaining deck. Quite literally,
like
one
7
card.
cards there.
That's 7 to 1s. I think is a pretty bad spot to be in.
I don't think you've played enough Arena.
You've been 7 to 1 that much?
7 to 1. It's nothing.
What's the worst thing that's ever happened to you in Arena?
I think the worst thing was I was on Priest with 7 creatures against a Paladin who was at like 3 life. I had 8 life. He top decked Ragnaros and it hit me.
Oh, that's 8 to 1. That's not that bad. It's a bad spot to be in.
He had like
but
17 cards in his deck.
So,
in Arena.
So let me get this straight. He only had to draft a Ragnaros, only had to draw it, and then only had to hit you through 7
And if I remember
minions.
correctly, it was like my first game with that deck.
It's just busted too.
Yeah.
You just have like the best. You're like, this is a 12-0.
Yeah.
And then it's like, mazes you.
Other than that, stuff that happens a lot of the time is, people use like fireballs and frostbolts on your face for no reason at all, and then they draw into more of them consecutively, and you just die because of it.
That guy has 8 fireballs in his deck. Like
Yeah, but
I
still.
fireballed my opponent with no fireballs in hand before. I had 10 fireballs.
You've had 10 fireballs?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. That was a 12-hour.
I don't even believe that.
That was a 12-hour. That was one of the ones I didn't stream to. Actually, I think Backspace was on Skype with me. Because we used to draft Arena, and what we would do...
I've never seen 10 of one card in Arena.
When we got
I've never seen that.
When we got to an advantageous point, we would just try to deck our opponent. We would only kill their minions, and then let them just run out of cards. And people would continue to play the entire way through. Like, some guy would have no chance to win, and we'd have like 3 Boulder Fist Ogres, and they have the top deck, and we're at 30, and they just keep going. And I was like, he's actually going to let this happen. We played that way for about a week until we just stopped playing Arena entirely.
I'm trying to think of more outrageous stuff that's happened in Arena.
I've had 8 Fire Elementals before, too. That one was really solid.
I've been triple Leroyed in Arena.
Triple Leroyed in Arena?
It's like Leroy faceless. Next time I got Leroyed again.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 Leroys. Wow. What a deck.
He's a rogue, too.
So he's got like 3 Shadow Steps.
Oh, yeah, that did happen in one of the rogue decks. Like on turn 3, I got like Eviscerate faced.
Oh my gosh.
And then like turn 6, I get Leroy Shadow
you just
Step
well
Leroy.
played him and quit on the turn 3 Eviscerate face. You know it's over by then. It's Arena. Like, no one's going to eviscerate your face.
Oh, no, it was turn 7. I got Leroy Shadow Step Leroy, and he top decked a Sinister Strike. For exact lethal.
Just 3 ya.
Yeah.
Solid value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guessed it too. I'm like, what is he doing? The only way he's going to win is a Sinister Strike, and there it is. Yeah.
Great games.
Most of these great games start with like, what is he doing? You know.
It's always that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's Jiraxis versus Jiraxis.
Arena made attack. Well, we're watching a Warcraft 3 game. I mean, what?
This game's actually been pretty interesting. I've been kind of eyeing this back and forth.
I mean, there's like stuff going on. And it's like water metals and whoa. Okay, we're done.
That's a fun matchup.
Yeah.
I used to play Undead.
I played Warcraft 3, but I don't have like the keyboard feel for like RTS.
Yeah.
I never play them seriously, so
I play
just
Diablo. Diablo's that's a pretty tough one.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, you have like 4 hotkeys.
Yeah,
And then
play that.
camera's locked.
Play that with your nose or
1
something.
unit. That's a tough game.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
I mean, it's hard. You're controlling hundreds of units at times sometimes, and then you can't do it wrong. If you do it wrong, you just die. What a tough game.
What is the most insane thing that happened to me right now? I don't know. I think it is the Ragnaros.
So Triple Leroy is not the most insane thing.
I think Ragnaros.
You think the Ragnaros is worse than Triple Leroy?
Oh yeah.
I don't think so.
You're 8 life on a priest, no cards in hand, no board on a paladin. You have 7 creatures.
I don't know, man.
What else do you lose to? I had like a death too. Like I didn't even lose to Deathwing.
What did you lose to?
Lose to nothing. There's nothing in the game that I lose to.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's kind of brutal. Worse things have happened though.
No.
I've seen runner runner straight flushes, man. Those are brutal.
No, I don't know.
Those are big pots too.
Warcraft 3.
I can't believe people actually still play Warcraft 3. I'm surprised by that.
I think it's a fun game to watch. I watched like some Philippine championship like a couple months ago. It's pretty cool.
By yourself.
I mean, I had no idea what was going on. So yeah.
Just decide why not.
Yeah.
That's always fun.
Yeah, you gotta check out what people are doing.
Sure.
I think we were a bit to go until the game, though. I think this might be like some kind of championship match or something.
This feels like an important one. They've been playing all day. And
Yeah.
they brought this one to the stage like for this time slot.
Yeah. I don't know.
Surprise.